All right, let's talk about something we all struggle with. You ever pour your heart and soul into an explanation, write this long, super detailed email, only to get, well, crickets? Or even worse, the other person completely misses the point? Well, today, we're going to deconstruct exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how to make sure your message actually lands.
I mean, it is one of the most frustrating things, isn't it? In your head, it's all perfectly clear. You've laid it all out. But somehow, the person on the other end seems to have heard a totally different conversation. That gap, the space between what you send and what they actually receive, that is the single biggest point of failure in all of communication.
So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start by blowing up a huge myth about communication. Then I'll introduce you to a really powerful new way to think about it, the communication shipper model. After that, we'll meet the 4 big enemies that are trying to sabotage your message. Then we'll get the skills to beat them, see it all in action with a real-world case study, and wrap up with a super simple checklist you can start using, like, right now. Okay, first things first, we have to challenge this fundamental and frankly completely flawed idea that most of us operate under every single day. We seem to think that our job is done the second the words leave our mouth or our fingers leave the keyboard.
This is a huge mental shift, right? The old way is totally passive. Hey, I sent the message. My job's done. But the new, effective mindset is active. It says, I am responsible for how my message is received. That means if they misunderstand, the power and the opportunity to fix it actually starts with you.
So to really get a grip on this, let's stop thinking about communication as this fuzzy, abstract thing. Let's start thinking of it like a physical process. To be specific, let's imagine you're a shipper, and your message is a package you need to deliver. Okay, so in this model, you're the packer. You're carefully putting together your message, which is the package. Then you pick a delivery vehicle. That's your channel, like an email or a phone call, to send it to the receiver, who is your customer. And here's the key. You absolutely need that feedback, that signature, to confirm the package arrives safely. But the problem is, most of us just pack the box and kind of kick it out the door, totally ignoring the rest of its journey. And what happens during that journey? Well, your package faces this constant threat called noise. Now, noise isn't just, loud sounds. It's any interference that can damage, distort, or even destroy your message before it gets delivered. It's the potholes in the road, the bad weather, the wrong address on the box. And make no mistake, this noise is the #1 reason your communication failed. So the real skill here is becoming a master at eliminating this noise. And to do that, we first have to know where it's coming from. So let's meet the 4 main enemies that are actively working around the clock to sabotage your message. So enemy #1 is often, well, us. We create our own noise. An arrogant or condescending tone, that'll make someone shut down instantly. And those little typos in an email, they might seem small, but they absolutely shred your credibility. And using a ton of technical jargon with someone who isn't an expert, it doesn't make you sound smart, it just makes sure they have no idea what you're talking about. Next up, the delivery vehicle itself, the channel. You could have the perfect message but send it at the wrong time, like asking for something when your boss is totally stressed out and it's doomed. Or using the wrong medium, like trying to handle a really sensitive topic over a text message. That's just asking for trouble. It's like trying to ship a grand piano on a bicycle. It's just not going to work. The third enemy comes from your customer, the receiver. They might already be resistant to your idea before you even say a word. Or they could be physically distracted, in a noisy coffee shop, or mentally distracted because they're multitasking during your meeting. And you can never, ever underestimate cultural differences, where something that's totally normal for you might be seriously offensive to them. And finally, the fourth and maybe the sneakiest enemy, a total lack of feedback. This is when you send the package, but you never get a signature. You know that dead silence you get after you ask, any questions? We all just assume it means, yep, we all get it. But you know what? More often than not, it means nobody understood enough to even know what to ask. All right, so we've met the enemies. Now for the good part. Let's arm ourselves with the solution. We're moving from just diagnosing the problem to getting the practical skills. This is your personal toolkit for becoming a master at denoising all of your communication. It really all boils down to 3 core strategies. First, you have to build a foundation of credibility so people actually want to listen to you. Second, you stop assuming they understand and you start actively checking that your message was received correctly. And third, you have to tailor your message because one size definitely does not fit all. Let's really zoom in on that second step for a second, because honestly, this is a total game changer. We have to stop asking, do you understand? It's a useless question. Why? Because the default polite answer is always yes. A strong question forces the person to recall the information and confirms they actually get it. Something like, hey, just to make sure we're on the same page, can you quickly summarize the next steps you're going to take? That is how you get that delivery confirmation signature. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this stuff plays out in the real world, in a high-stakes situation. This case study is about a brand new teacher, her once-in-a-lifetime honeymoon trip, and a school with a super strict no-exceptions policy about taking leave at the start of the school year. And just look at this slide. It shows the two paths this could have gone down. The noisy, confrontational approach is, just to quote the rulebook, nope, against the rules. The outcome? A formal complaint, a totally ruined working relationship. But the denoising approach, it starts with empathy. I get it, this is a huge deal for you. That immediately removes the psychological resistance and opens the door to collaboration and a solution that actually works for everybody. And this was the masterstroke. The HR director completely reframed the problem. It stopped being about rules and started being about shared responsibility and empathy for the students and for her fellow teachers. By shifting that perspective, they persuaded the teacher to find a new solution, not by forcing her hand, but through genuine shared understanding. So, how do we make all this stuff a habit? Our final tool is a simple but really powerful little protocol you can use before any important communication goes out. Think of it as your final quality check before you ship that message. Before you hit send, before you walk into that meeting, just take 3 seconds. First, do I have the right people here? No more, no less. Second, is this the right channel for this specific message, or is it going to create noise? And third, is the message itself clean? Is it free of typos, confusing jargon, or a harsh tone that's just going to undermine everything?
So let's bring it all home. Here's the most important takeaway. Effective communication is not an accident. It is a process, a system. If you start viewing yourself as a shipper, if you learn to identify and eliminate those 4 enemies of noise, and if you consistently use the skills of building credibility, checking for understanding, and tailoring your message, you can guarantee your ideas don't just get sent, they get delivered every single time. So start with that 3-second rule today. What's the first message you're going to check?